Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the teleconference. This is the Library Advisory Commission meeting for November 16th, 2020.
And item number 1 on our agenda tonight is call to order and a roll call. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Hang on just a second, Vice Chair Bass. To join this webinar using a telephone, please dial any of the following numbers, and I'll read a couple of them out loud. 1-833-548-0276, 1-877-853-5247, and then slowly enter the webinar ID of 963-7461-1351. As an attendee, this meeting is being recorded and streamed live to YouTube. Your microphone is muted for the entire presentation. You do not need a microphone, camera, or a screen if you only want to listen to the meeting, as this meeting is accessible by landline or mobile phone. If you need assistance, please call the library's telephone information line at 1-831-427-7713. The Commission will take public comments as outlined in the posted agenda and in the next slides. All comments must include the agenda item number and be received prior to the close of public comment on that agenda item. If you're joining by computer, you may use the Q&A feature to type your comments. On the attendee control bar near the bottom of the screen, you'll see the Q&A icon. You may also use the raise hand icon to raise your hand. The moderator will call your name when it is your turn. State your full name for the record and then continue with your comment. You will have 3 minutes of speaking time. If you're using a mobile device, the Q&A icon and the raise hand icons likely appear near the top right corner of the screen. If you've called into this meeting, you may raise your hand by pressing *9 on your keypad. The moderator will call out the last 3 digits of your phone number when it is your turn to comment. Press *6 to unmute yourself. You will again have 3 minutes of speaking time. Alternatively, you may call the library's telephone information line to timely submit your comments at 1-831-427-7713. These will be read by the moderator. Once the commission begins, if you're joining by computer, to see all panelists, you may need to use the Zoom control bar and select Gallery View. Depending on the size of your mobile device screen, you may need to scroll over to view whomever's speaking. If you're accessing this meeting via the web browser only or a Chromebook, you may not see all the panelists at one time, only the panelists speaking. The Vice Chair of the Commission, Lindsay Bass, will now call the meeting to order. We are transitioning to Gallery View. Please stand by. Vice Chair Bass, over to you.
Thank you, Moderator Jones. This will be my first meeting chairing and filling some big shoes. So I call the meeting to order tonight with a bit of a heavy heart. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Bruce Cotter.
Present.
Rena Dubin.
Present.
Jim Landreth.
Present.
Mary Ripma.
Present.
Trisha Wynn. Absent, I believe, at the moment. And Vice Chair Lindsay Bass.
Present. Okay, moving along to item number 2 on our agenda tonight is adoption of our agenda. Is there a motion at this time?
I move we adopt the agenda as written.
Do I have a second? Jim, I think you're muted. Okay, I'm going to take Mary.
Second.
So I have Bruce making the motion, Mary seconding. Can we take a roll call vote in favor?
Bruce Cotter.
Aye.
Rena Dubin.
Aye.
Jim Landreth.
Aye.
Mary Ripma.
Aye.
And Vice Chair Lindsay Bass.
Aye. Great. With the agenda adopted, item number 3 is oral communications. Moderator Jones, do we need to restate instructions for the public on oral communications?
Yes, please.
Any member of the audience may address the board on any matter, either on or off the agenda that is within the board's jurisdiction. Note, however, that the board is not able to undertake extended discussion or act on any non-agendized items. Such items can be referred to staff for appropriate action, which may include placement on a future agenda. If you intend to address a subject that is on the agenda, please hold your comments regarding that item until it is before the board so that we may properly address all comments on that subject at that time. In general, 3 minutes will be permitted per speaker during oral communications. A maximum of 30 minutes is set aside for oral communications at this time. Moderator Jones, do we have any public comments for oral communications?
Vice Chair Bass, we do. We have one. Our first one is from Jean Brocklebank, received Sunday, November 15th, 2020. The LAC chair should state at the beginning of each meeting that public comments will be requested during oral communications on items not on the agenda and at each agenda item thereafter, including on any action item prior to a vote by the LAC. Next point. The LAC webpage on the SCPL website should also stipulate those public comment opportunities during LAC meetings. Next point. The LAC webpage could list various ways in which the LAC welcomes comments from the public, including written correspondence to the LAC between scheduled LAC meetings. Next point. The record of meetings is important to keep the community appraised of the activity of the LAC. Therefore, consistency on the record of the LAC meetings on the LAC webpage is needed. For instance, there is no audio, Zoom video, or minutes for the July 20 meeting, even though there is a Zoom video for the May 18 meeting, nor are there minutes archived for the May 18 meeting. And then she references santacruzpl.org/library_boards/LAC/archives/2020. Next point. The LAC should be clear to the public on how the public might be able to or not suggest an item to be considered for placement on the agenda. Perhaps there can be a specific agenda item for each meeting called correspondence to LAC members. If none, then none can also be noted. She also mentioned, meanwhile, this gives me an opportunity to say how very limiting the chat feature is for comments by the public to be heard by commissioners and offer a suggestion for virtual meetings as long as we are stuck with them for the foreseeable future. As a computer user familiar with Zoom meetings, I know that phone-in comments are preferable for virtual meetings. The phone-in system provides for any caller to be muted automatically after they call and then press *9. Then staff or chair or vice chair can call on them and unmute them by directing them to push *6. Then all can hear the comment directly from the caller. To have commissioners trying to read the chat comments while paying attention to the meeting creates difficulties, and either the comments or the meeting discussion can get short shrift. I suppose that if the chair asks for public comments at a specific time and instructs all commissioners to read the comments as they arrive, then all would be on the same page. But that sure seems unwieldy compared to having all in the meeting, commissioners, staff, and even members of the public in attendance, hearing the same thing at the same time. And that ends this email. I also want to let you all know that Jean Brocklebank does have her hand up, so I'm going to go ahead and allow her to speak. So hang on just a moment, Jean. Go ahead. Jean, your mic is open. Jean, if you're using a computer.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't realize that you already had the system in place for us being able to speak to you this way and not having to use the Q&A. Secondly, the comments that you just read were not my oral communications. I sent those comments to Rena and to Bruce yesterday for them to use during the discussion of agenda item 7C. I didn't mean for them to be read as oral communications. And Rena had mentioned that she would forward them to everybody so that they would have them ahead of time. And so I'm hoping that you'll be discussing those things again. So this is good news to know now that via computer, you can actually hear what we're saying, because I don't like having to type things on Q&A. It takes your eyes away from the discussion. And it's hard to be engaged in the discussion while you're trying to read something too. So I'm really glad that you have this, and I'm sorry for any confusion I may have had. Thank you.
And I just want to say, Rena had sent an email to both Yvonne, Sarah, and I to have this read into the record. And it was my decision to read it as part of the oral communications, because it referenced a lot of things about the way the board works.
And let me just confirm, as Jean said, that her comments are in my discussion for later on in the evening.
Vice Chair Bass, I don't have any other comments from the public at this time.
Okay, and it sounds like we will have an opportunity to discuss in greater detail when we move on to general business, item number C.
I just wanted to welcome Tricia for joining us. Welcome.
If I could just apologize profusely, I was waiting to get on the Zoom, and then I realized the meeting was at the Felton Library. So I drove to the Felton Library. I'm sorry, it was my mistake. I feel awful. I'm sorry I'm late.
Are you in Felton?
I am sitting in the parking lot at the Felton Library using
That
the
is
library Wi-Fi. Thank you.
It's a lovely parking lot.
Most of you have not experienced this, but because we tend to move libraries every meeting, this inevitably happens to everyone, where they are at either the library before or after the meeting. And so I've done it myself. So,
Well, I was in Zoom meetings all day, and then I got ready to get on, and I thought, holy cow, I get to leave the house. I read it wrong. I'm very sorry. Thank you.
that may have been wishful thinking.
Yes, it was.
Amen to that.
We're glad to have you.
Yes, welcome, Tricia.
Thank you.
So we'll close oral communications as there are no more public comments, and move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is the report by the library director. Those 2 items will be led by Susan.
And I think I'm going to start with talking about Bob White, because it just feels really hard not to. I consider Bob a good friend and a mentor. He's taught me a lot about library world, and graciously hosted and participated in this group, as well as in the design of the Capitola Library and in the Capitola Library Friends. I think even those of you who only met him for a short time understand what a gracious and gentlemanly man he was. And I just have to acknowledge how much he is going to be missed by the public library community and the UCSC library community. I do want you to know that the Friends of the Capitola Library branch are going to name a room after him and have done some fundraising. I left you a portion of his obituary. I did have the opportunity to talk to his wife, Bonda, several times during his illness. I want to say it went very quickly with very little suffering. May we all be so blessed. But I think as a result, it left a big, huge hole, because a lot of people who loved him didn't get the opportunity to say goodbye. I don't know. I also wanted to give you the opportunity to say a few words about Bob, if you felt the need.
Well, I'm a fairly new member, and I really appreciated so much his mentoring in the first several months, and I'm going to miss him too, and very much appreciate his work with the libraries.
He reached out to me right after I was appointed, and we had several phone conversations. He wanted to be sure I understood kind of what I was getting myself in, how it all worked, what our purpose was. He was very generous with his time. Wonderful man. I will miss him very much.
I actually worked with Bob for a period while we were both up at UC Santa Cruz, and found him to be just the kindest, most thoughtful person during that time. And that was similar when I came on to the LAC, and just felt like he was such a great guide. I just felt like we were in such good hands with him. So I don't say that lightly, that I just feel like there's really, really big shoes that are left to fill now. We'll miss him a lot.
Yes. And I did send flowers to him from this group while he was in the hospital. And I did send a note to his widow as well. She did say that her hope would be to have a celebration of his life once we get through COVID. It just it's really difficult to do under these circumstances.
They did indicate that in lieu of flowers, following Bob's passing, that if anybody does want to make a donation in his name, to Second Harvest Food Bank or to Housing Matters, that a family would appreciate that. So if anybody's feeling like they want to do something for Bob, then that would be one way to do that.
I
Thank you,
did
Lindsay.
send something to Second Harvest, just under a family name.
Thank you, Mary. They're such a great organization. Okay, I think I will go into the November Library Director Report. And I think if there's a word to describe the last 6 weeks, it would be hard. We've gone through a lot of difficulty to the point of some moments it being comical. I would like to believe that we are beyond air quality alerts, fire evacuations, but we definitely entered construction issues with the Scotts Valley Library, where we had to close for several weeks. It's all good though. We're getting a new roof and an HVAC system before the rains begin. And we really had to work through with the staff how to develop a whole new model for providing library services under COVID. I'm really grateful to the staff. And so there's, a summary of a lot of the things we're doing. We really have been spending the last several weeks moving from curbside to what we're calling grab and go lobby services, where people enter the building and grab their own holds and check them out. It's a tightly controlled process with lots of consideration to safety. We did start the computer lab outside at the downtown library. It's been relatively successful. It became very apparent that it wasn't necessarily going to work well during the rains. So we created an entire process to put public computing at 4 of the 5 branches. We did not include Live Oak because Live Oak doesn't have a program room, and we couldn't get the sort of spatial separation that we felt we needed to be safe. And then we worked with the staff and created a whole new schedule for everyone, and assignments and supervisors, and we added hours to the 5 branches. That began implementation on Saturday. We have had extensive union issues. The staff are very afraid for their personal safety, and I'm sure you can all be sympathetic as to why. We also have new officers in the union office who I think are really changing the way in which they operate in Santa Cruz City and County. So we have been spending a lot of time bargaining and negotiating and meeting and conferring. We felt like we had come to place this morning, actually around 9 a.m. where everybody was comfortable with where we were at. And then, of course, at noon, they announced we were moving from red to purple, having only gone to red last Tuesday. I do want to say we'll talk a little bit more about the service model, but what we tried to do is create a service model that would allow us to operate in all of the tiers, and so that people wouldn't have to experience quite as much change. And so we do believe that we can operate this new service model in the purple tier, consistent with the state regulations. But I would say that I suspect that will cause some more stress, and that we will spend a lot more time in the next several weeks talking about safety with the union staff.
May I ask a question?
Please,
Well, when
Tricia.
I read through my material on Friday and then read through it again this evening, and was really struck by how different it was between Friday and Monday, especially with us, rolling back into the purple tier, and was really, moved by the union statement. So I just kind of wonder, I mean, I like to applaud your efforts for opening up and giving every library hours, and, working closely with staff to address their safety concerns, which I take seriously also. But, just wondered now with the purple tier being imposed, does this give labor more of a, an upset? And do you feel us sliding, back a little bit, or, are we kind of where we will be for a while? And I know that it changes hourly.
So one of the things that the city of Santa Cruz and the county, in all honesty, request is that we make science-based decisions. And the really difficult component to that for me as a manager, and I know Eric spends a great deal of time on this, is I think the science is out on some incredibly difficult questions. So, or it contradicts itself. So we're doing our best to make science-based decisions. But the science does change, and we're trying to keep up to date with that. I think I can't imagine over the next 6 months that this isn't going to be a constant conversation where we're constantly evaluating the science that comes before us.
Okay.
And so, for example, the state library keeps doing studies on quarantine materials, and about every 2 weeks we get a new study to look at. And I care deeply that our employees and our patrons are safe, so we will do our best. I have to say, sort of the ugly other side of this is the city will pay people to work. And if we make the decision to not work, there are financial consequences to that as well.
And I do want to say, if I could, Susan, I feel the meeting went well this morning in terms of us having a good conversation around, we are, not only are we meeting the protocols that the city has put forth, but we have listened to labor on this. And so we kind of went over that again, and how we are kind of going above and beyond what those protocols are. And just to give you a couple examples, we decided this was partly a suggestion from staff, and then also we were mulling this over anyways, around having portable air filters in the branches that don't have the most modern ventilation systems. So we're adding to that as well. The other piece of it is that it's true that this model that we created is to provide stability, depending, even if we slip in, as we just did, to the most restrictive tier, it's still a conservative model. So the current tier, which has libraries in retail, permits retail to have up to 25% capacity. And so we are still remaining under that in this current model. And we have a number of other guidelines, and we've evolved them along with the pilot that we ran in Felton. And so we're always modifying it and having that conversation with our staff and with labor. And so it's on the forefront of our mind that the science is new on this. And so we are oftentimes, if not always, erring on the side of caution and making our model more conservative than what the guidelines inside those tiers actually permit.
So what's interesting to me about the purple tier is the implication is that there isn't a more strict tier than the purple tier, but there may be. Do you know what I'm saying? Because we are not fully closed down in the way that we were closed down in the spring. And as I look at what some of the things that are going on with other states, they are creating rules and regulations that are more strict than our purple tier. And so I also think that there is a possibility, particularly in the next 6 weeks, that we might see more severe restrictions in the tier system outline. So I do have to just articulate, I think, honestly, I'm exhausted. I think management's exhausted. I think the staff is exhausted. A lot of people, the greatest thing about working in the library is that the people that work here believe deeply in the mission. They care deeply about the patrons. They want to make sure that they get their information needs met. But I think that the change has been difficult and constant, and I'm sure you're experiencing that in other places in your life as well. It seemed like a particularly rough week. And so with that, I think we should go to the agenda because there's still a lot of things to talk about in terms of next steps.
Susan?
Jim, yeah.
What is the procedure for raising your hand? Raise your hand or raise your hand on the button?
Jim, I think you can just talk.
Okay.
You can just unmute yourself.
At some point tonight, could you elaborate on what the city of Scotts Valley has decided as to how to allocate the cost of the roof between library and non-library? And speaking of science, I'm wondering if, and it's constantly changing as you and Eric mentioned, I'm wondering if the new HVA system has any sort of accommodation, forward-looking accommodation like a plasma generator or anything like that, that, a lot of airports and hospitals are putting into their HVAC. And I'm wondering if that's something that the other new libraries are going to be looking at doing, or if you guys have ruled that out. I'm not micromanaging, I'm just interested.
Jim, you have more information than I do in some ways, so maybe we can even have a side conversation. But let me answer that right now because I also did a facilities update, and there's been a lot of things going on with facilities. The roof is being completed at Scotts Valley. The HVAC units are being put on the roof. I am not aware of a plasma generator, and I don't actually know what that is, so maybe we could have that conversation. What I've been told by my facilities person in September, they went through all the open buildings HVAC systems to see who could retrofit their systems for HEPA filters. And they were able to do it at Live Oak. I thought Scotts Valley even then, and Felton. And it was just simply inserting a higher level filter. But that Aptos and the downtown libraries weren't able to be retrofitted. and that they would be as part of their construction, but that's where we put the 7 standalone air filter units within those buildings. I think I would know if they had added a plasma generator. And so maybe we could talk about if that's something I should be looking at. The thing that Scotts Valley and money, we might want to spend a whole meeting on this. And the Measure S funds. So Measure S funds are supposed to go to library projects. We've gotten into lots of conversation about what is a library project. I think the other place the big conversation's been happening is at the Live Oak Annex. For the first several years after Measure S was passed, there was long discussions with the city about the library, which is occupying about, I think it's about 4/5 of what was a former roller rink, but the remaining 1/5 has been empty, and theater groups have wanted to establish a community theater there. And there's been a lot of discussions with the cities what they can spend Measure S funds on that 1/5 and what they can't. I have to say I've been in some ways frustrated because we've literally had a leaking roof with plastic barrels every winter, catching water from the roof into a brand new library. It's not good for computers or books. We finally came to agreement and I signed off on it, and I can get you that agreement. I'm comfortable with the Measure S funds going towards the additional 1/5 if I can get an equal value of services for that. And so we signed an MOU with the city that basically will give the library priority use of that other space when it's complete as a theater for library programs, events, and use. And I felt like that was a good compromise to get the roof project moving forward. And most library systems actually have a larger venue than is available at the Santa Cruz Public Library System. This would allow us to do a major author talk or event of that size. And so that's where we are with the MOU, but a portion of the Measure S funds is completing that roof. I don't think it's completing the HVAC for that
That was
component
my
of
other
the building.
question. Yeah. Is it really, 40-10? I had the impression it was 60-40.
I apologize. It's probably been a year since we did this discussion. And so I know it's about, no, you're right. It's maybe even a third because it's about 9,000 square feet. And that library is under 15. So you're right. It's more like a third plus.
Well, I think that's a good triumph that you've got. You have to do something because the roof has to go on.
Yeah.
That you extracted a commitment.
And I'm sympathetic to the city not wanting to do 2/3 of the roof. I don't think that would have helped.
No.
Yeah.
It's just that the other side, were it not to be decided by the city that it would be a theater space, could well be an income generating space to the city.
And we could, again, share in the venue. I think that would be a nice outcome for the library. I also have to say, the city of Scotts Valley has been really good to the library. And every time they've looked at alternative uses, they've really consulted with us saying, is this an adjacency that would be good for the library? And I do think an event space would be an awesome thing to have attached.
Should it come to fruition.
Should it come to fruition. Difficult to do anything.
Are there any other clarifying questions on item number 4?
I just want to say, go Aptos. We made progress.
Yeah.
Lots of really, really exciting work. You guys are doing so much in the midst of all of this change. And I think today is a great example of that. Moving now into the purple tier. So the roller coaster continues and you guys continue to persevere while keeping patron and staff safety kind of front and center. So thanks for that. We'll close out. Oh, one question, comment from Rena. Rena, we can't hear you. Can you try again?
Can you hear me? I'm not muted.
Barely.
Oh.
Barely. You're very quiet.
That's unusual. I'm wondering about Capitola and when it is scheduled to open and what it means to be open for that building.
So the power line has been moved. If you've driven by, it's going up. They're doing the exterior shell and the interior work. We expect to have both La Selva Beach and the Capitola branch get their occupancy permits by probably the end of January, which is then the library just needs to move in and open. You'll see in my financial update, I am going to go and make a request for funds of the Joint Powers Board. I believe we are okay through about January 1st, but we have a series of special projects related to construction that I'll go through that will really impact both the timing of construction and the quality of those openings. And so we'll go through that a little bit later.
Mhm.
Any other questions on item 4?
We do have a
We've
public
got-
comment, Vice Chair Bass.
Okay. Moderator Jones, would you open up the line for public comment?
Yes. Judy, your line is open. Go ahead. Judy, you may need to unmute yourself, but your line is open.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering if the Scotts Valley I thought the city of Scotts Valley did a study about the feasibility of the theater space, and it seemed like it would cost much more money than they had available. So is that still a possibility, or?
The city of Scotts Valley has a lease with a theater group to develop it as a theater space.
Right, but there's no Measure S money going for the theater, right?
Not for the theater directly.
Okay, thanks.
Moderator Jones, do we have any other public comment?
Vice Chair Bass, we do not have any further public comment on item 4.
Great. We'll close out item 4 then and move along to member reports. Item number 5. Are there any member reports from commissioners? Raise your hand if you have a report. Seeing no hands raised. We'll move on to item number 6 on the agenda, the consent calendar. All items listed in the consent calendar will be enacted by one motion in the form listed below. There will be no separate discussion on these items prior to the time the board votes on the action unless members of the public or the board request specific items to be discussed for separate review. Items pulled for separate discussion will be considered following general business. We have one item on the consent calendar. Do I have a motion
I move
concerning
approval.
this item?
I move approval
Is
of the
there a
consent
second?
item.
Tricia has moved and Bruce has seconded. Can we take a roll call vote, Clerk Sumano Vargas?
Bruce Cotter,
Aye.
Rena Dubin,
Aye.
Jim Landreth,
Aye.
Mary Ripma,
Aye.
Trisha Wynn,
Aye.
and Vice Chair Lindsay Bass.
Aye. That motion passes unanimously. We have adopted and approved the minutes from the September 21st LAC meeting. Moving on to item number 7, general business. As a reminder, general business items are intended to provide an opportunity for public discussion of each of the items listed. The following procedure is followed for each business item. There'll be a staff explanation, board questions, public comment, board deliberation, and then a decision. The first item, item number A, letter A, on the general business agenda is library operational recommendations under COVID-19.
Thank you. And this is really just more detail about how we are going about in implementing sort of the next phase of operations, including such things as the hours of service, the types of services, how the services will be configured for safety. I do want to point out that we received a CARES grant from the county through Zach Friend's good work that would help fund the Wi-Fi hotspots. The bureaucracy moves slowly. We finally got the funding 2 weeks ago. We'll get the hotspots on, I think, Monday, and hope to start checking them out in early December with both the Chromebooks and the Kindles. And we are doing some partnerships around those checkouts to target some organizations that need access. I think the important aspect of this memo is actually on the last page of it, where it says, over the next several months, the library will. I laugh. First and foremost, we have to resolve the union issues around safety and workload. It's really essential that the staff be working with us towards our goals. We need to solidify the grab and go model of services. So we're really, we're in week 2 of that experiment. We're learning a lot, and we're modifying a lot. So, if someone has trouble with the self-check, how do you respond to their questions from 6 feet away? And so we've been developing a whole bunch of scripts and spots to stand and additional things. We have to say, though, that the initial feedback on the grab and go lobby service is very, very positive. People really like it. We have to implement the computer and Wi-Fi checkout program. Now, the big lifts. We have to empty Garfield Park and Branca 40 before construction. We have to turn those buildings over by February 1st. We have to open La Selva Beach. So we'll get handed an empty building, and we have to put all the furniture and equipment in it and train the staff. We have a lot of new systems for the new branches. In the Capitola branches, we suspect it'll take 6 to 8 weeks to get them up and running. And to be honest, we learned a lot on Felton, but we don't necessarily want to do it the way we did Felton. We literally got the occupancy permit the day before we had the grand opening party. And I lost hair over that. We then will have to close and empty the Aptos branch library. And we continue to have to move forward planning the downtown branch in a multi-use facility. So over the next 6 months, we actually have a major lift that goes above and beyond our daily work. We believe that our current staffing level can achieve the things above that we've outlined, but we are really struggling how to do the things above and accomplish all of these changes as a result of the joy of construction projects. Tricia.
Thank you. So certainly in Felton and La Selva and Capitola, you had friends groups that helped with the sale and things like that. And of course, there's a vibrant friends group at the Aptos Library that plan to help. But how are you actually going to do it in Garfield Park and Branca 40? I mean, who is physically going to do that work?
So I'm creating proposal that you'll see next in the financial plan that allows us to hire some library assistant twos.
Okay.
It's our not our basic position, but one step up on a temporary basis. We have a lot of people that were in our temporary pool that I think might be willing to come and help us. And we would hire them through the life of a project, but they probably, if we time this correctly, potentially could help us put up La Selva Beach, then put up Capitola, then take down Aptos. And if we did it right, they could also take down Garfield Park and Branson 40.
Okay. I did see that in the financial report, but I was just kind of wondering, like, what does that look like? I mean, would they bring in some temporary help to actually move the boxes, or?
So we will hire a moving service, but the truth of the matter is we tend to, it's a more complicated process. So first we have to take out everything we don't want. And we give that to the friends and they tend to have a sale. In our conversation with the friends group, I think their idea would be to have one sort of big sale during COVID rather than to do 4 tiny ones, probably at Branson 40. And then we have to go through and take all the books that we feel we can fit into other branches. You know, we'll pack them to the gills, but we'll take all the sort of bestseller, high circulating books and put them in other branches. And then we will box and honestly, the friend space upstairs in the downtown branch that has now been emptied, we'll use as a semi-storage space for some of the books. The good news is, honestly, we'll take a lot of the books from Branson 40, Garfield Park, and Aptos and fill Capitola's bookshelves. We were able to get a really large gift from the La Selva Beach friends, so they'll get a lot of new books. But the Capitola friends weren't able to give us much for new books, so we'll have to use books we have.
Okay.
I'm also going to ask for more money for the collection out of the sales tax revenue because we just need more books right now as we open up new branches.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tricia. But you can see there's a relatively heavy lift there for non-routine work. The caveat that we have with the union is our staff all took 10% pay reductions and a 10% furlough. And anyone we would hire cannot be used to backfill the regular work of those staff. And that's a very delicate balance that will have to be negotiated. But I think you can see from this list, there's a great deal of unique and specialized work that are resulting from construction, not from the furlough per se. But it'll be a tap dance. So in the short run, what I would love is for this board, because the devil's going to be with the JPA in terms of convincing them that this is a strategy that they want to take. And it may be difficult to get them to spend money right now. The recommendation that I would ask of you is that you really endorse the library operation recommendations under COVID-19 service model and the next steps that we've identified. And the truth of the matter is, if we don't get those resources, we may have to delay some openings and we may have to close earlier some other branches.
Are there any other clarifying questions on 7A? Yes, Bruce.
Can you comment a little bit on this paragraph about the union that's at the bottom of your COVID report? and their comments.
So again, I think we've been having, I wanted to get you a sense of the tone.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking for the clarification.
I think it's really important that you understand the tone that that they are really struggling and that these aren't simple and easy meetings. I disagree. I think I can give them many, many examples of where we have budged on their concerns. For example, you know, we started this planning in September at our last meeting, was kind of the kickoff of it. And my hope very much had been that we would be instituting this model in October. And here we are really instituting it on what was November 14th. And that was the date that union members had picked, not the date that I felt management had wanted. And I think that's a really significant example of where we've made modifications. I think in some ways the union members were correct because we were making significant changes to people's personal schedules. You know, you need a couple weeks to absorb that, whether it be daycares and doctor's appointments and all of that. But I think Eric's example about we did, you know, we put the HEPA filters in the moment they asked. We added stationary HEPA filter machines when they asked. We've done all sorts of modifications to the computers, the public computing. It's a very, very structured process because they asked. And so I disagree, but I think that part of this is the time that you really need to spend with people to make them understand the changes you're trying to achieve. And I guess I also put it out there because I think the next 3 months will not necessarily be any easier.
Is the tone consistent with the tone you hear from your staff, or is the tone more a union management tone? You commented earlier that there was a change in the union management.
Well, I think the new union management, the old union management was a handshake and we agree and that's it. And I think this new management really wants everything written down and agreed to. I think under these stressful conditions, probably this new approach is not a bad idea. We have discovered that we left meetings where we felt like we had both agreed, and then we found out that we were agreeing on different things. It's really hard for me to judge the union, Bruce, because I think there are things that people will say to their union representation that they won't say to their supervisor.
Sure.
And so the staff, we have weekly staff meetings right now, all staff. We've been doing it for several months, and they have been more positive than the union meetings, but the structure of the meetings and the role of the meetings are really different.
Yeah, I guess I asked that because I had occasion to spend a little time with the staff in Felton, and they seemed fairly positive to me. I took your advice.
And I think it's like any change you roll out, just prior to that change being implemented, there's going to be anxiety, and then particularly during a pandemic, there's going to be even heightened anxiety. And I was there at Felton the first day it rolled out, and there were some hiccups. We had some problems with the self-checkout machines. And as you may remember, Scotts Valley's roof took longer than we expected. So we took all of the materials from Scotts Valley and we had them at Felton, which caused some other confusion for patrons who are coming from Scotts Valley. So there were a number of challenges going on that first day. And like any pilot program, we recognized some things that we needed to fix right away for it to be successful at the other branches when we rolled it out there as well. And I think as staff experienced it, it went a lot more smoothly than a lot of people anticipated. And the kind of the backstory to this as well is this model was envisioned in part to reduce the labor demand on staff, and it did do that. And so I think people appreciated, staff appreciated that. And so there were patrons who really praised it, and there were some patrons who, you know, there is trepidation too around going into a building when they had everything, you know, brought to them, and I can understand that. And so we do offer an option to mail items to patrons who are immunocompromised, who have other issues where they can't go into the building, but it does work very efficiently. And I think staff really positively, as you said, responded to that.
Thanks for going.
So we do have a public comment on this. Are there any other commission questions around 7A? Moderator Jones, would you read or open up the line for comment on 7A?
Yes, of course. Jean, I'm going to open up your line. I know you typed in a comment, but I'm going to open up your line, and then if you'd like me to read your comment, I will. So go ahead.
Hi, this is Michael of the Jean and Michael team. I just wanted to underscore Eric's comments about the new system. I've had a chance to use that at the Live Oak Library, and it's really very easy to use. It's a lot more like it used to be, and I appreciate the fact that it takes less staff time to accommodate everyone that way, and I hope it will continue to get smoother. I do have a comment about this particular agenda item. When Susan was referencing a document that you all have before you, we can't see that document because it's not in the packet, the agenda packet. So it's a little confusing when we're trying to follow along in the meeting and you're referencing something that we can't see. You might consider that any materials that go to the commission also be included in the staff packet. Thanks very much.
And I'm just reading from the packet, the item on page 9, 10, and 11.
There was some reference to a chart that we don't have.
The chart is on page 12.
Oh, we're looking. Sometimes we're blind.
That's the
organization chart.
Organization chart, but that doesn't seem to have any reference to Susan's comments.
I'm confused. I'm sorry. I've been reading from this document.
It's the I think it's the bullet points you're referring to.
Oh. And okay. It's at the bottom of the sort of next steps are the 7 items listed at the bottom of page 11.
Is there clarity there, or are there still questions? I was under the impression you were referencing the staff report.
Yeah, I still don't see it. I couldn't follow it as it was going along. Perhaps that it is, and you have a little more information about it than we do. Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for addressing that.
Sorry for the confusion. Okay, we can now deliberate on item 7A. In our agenda packet, there is a staff recommendation. Any other additional comments, or are there any suggested motions? Hi, Rena. Yes, we can hear you. You're still soft.
Just to say thank you. Thank you for everything that you're doing and the staff. I hope you know how much we appreciate all of the work.
Thank you. I will share it with them. I know Mary keeps prompting me. We were going to do a treat, and I have my committee of staff people who are planning a treat, and they keep asking me not to send it out this week because we don't want everyone to think it's because of this or because of that. We want them just to appreciate it. So I said, well, can we try the beginning of December? They said, just get through the union stuff and then we'll send it out. So we're behind, Mary, but we will send out a thank you from the board on the beginning of December. It's a staff committee that keeps telling me no, so.
Yes, Tricia. I'll take Tricia and then Jim.
Well, I was just going to move approval of the staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Okay. So I have a motion by Tricia, a second by Jim. Can the clerk call a roll call vote?
Yeah. Bruce Cotter,
Aye.
Rena Dubin,
Aye.
Jim Landreth,
Aye.
Mary Ripma,
Aye.
Tricia Wynn,
Aye.
and Vice Chair Lindsay Bass.
Aye. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Our second item on or under general business is item B. This is the fiscal year 2021 budget update. I will hand it over to Director Nimitz.
Our governance is complicated. Our finance is complicated. So there's the JPA, which runs the operation of the library. There is the LFFA, which manages the sales of the Measure S bonds. There is also an entity called the LFA. It's the Library Financing Authority. The LFA allocates the proceeds of both sales tax funds and property tax funds for everyone but the city of Santa Cruz. It allocates funds for the library in Watsonville, even though the Watsonville Library is not a part of the Santa Cruz Public Libraries. So it's intersecting circles without them being the same. So the LFA does most of our financial forecasting, and then we tend to forecast the remainder of it using the same model for the city of Santa Cruz. But I submitted to you a library sales tax revenue update from the LFA. And the difficulty of that is the $1.2 million of excess funds will not all be given to or assigned to the Santa Cruz Public Libraries. A portion of that will go to Watsonville. And I'm not exactly sure what that proportion is today. One of the things that has changed in our environment is there was a legal decision, and I should know the name, but it was basically the Amazon decision at the state of California. Because so many people were buying on large national retail sites, local governments were not getting the sales tax that they had done previously. And a court case occurred that distributes a portion of what the state is now collecting in sales tax to local jurisdictions. And that's just come about in the last year. So we haven't been totally aware of where those sales tax proceeds are going. On top of that, we had the pandemic and then this economic recession. And so we do see that our local sales tax proceeds are going down significantly as we had projected. But this statewide sales tax that's being distributed locally is making up more of the difference than we had originally assumed, which is good news. So right now, the LFA, and they just published it in the first week of November, is estimating that we will have at the end of this fiscal year 1.259 million more, about 14% higher than our June estimate. And again, I don't know what share the libraries is, but in looking at our needs, and I am putting this together rather quickly for this board packet, because we really began to have a discussion about it last week, and we really need to ascertain exactly which positions and how much for collections we would like. We would really like to go and ask the JPA to allow us to have about $400,000 of this amount, so that we can accomplish many of those things that we have described in the previous packet. Primarily, it's taking those branches up and down due to construction. What it really would allow us to do is do that in a more timely manner than I think we'll be able to do on our base level budget. And so I am asking that you endorse this recommendation to the Joint Powers Board to release $400,000 of the sales tax to achieve those goals. I am suggesting that we do this as part-time, sorry, not part-time, on call. What's the word I'm looking for? Temporary positions, so that as the financial situation improves or gets worse, there's still the opportunity to keep those people and maybe seek long-term, more permanent positions, or in the worst case, we can let them go under their own contracts. And remember, there were 67 people in our pool of people that we let go in June. I don't know the number of them that was LA2s. We also have some people on our LA2 hiring list that we could put into temporary positions as well. So we have a whole group of people that are relatively well trained. They have background checks and could begin almost immediately. Any questions?
Thanks, Susan. Jim.
I'm sorry, Susan. This is the first time I recall, it probably isn't the first time I've been told about the LFA.
Just the LFA.
So the LFA, the revenues that they allocate, did you say, or did I misconstrue that doesn't go to the downtown branch?
And you know, this might be worth a little just workshop next time, because we have some big issues coming up. Sorry, I'm just going to write this on finance. So their formulas and agreements that the LFA makes are separate from a separate agreement that the LFA makes with the city of Santa Cruz. And in the end, that agreement equals the sum total of what the library gets. And so it's not as articulated as this dollar goes towards Aptos or not downtown, but it's a completely different and separate agreement. And to be honest, they made this agreement 4 years ago. I'm not happy with the agreement that they made. And this is why maybe we should have a workshop. And their agreement is about to end. And it might be worthy to have a discussion about those formulas and who benefits and who does not. My most frustrating component has been that the LFA funds generate far more money than that had been going to the library's operations. And so at times when we were pretty broke, they had pools of funds that have been, that's frustrating to me as a director. I think the good news is in the last 2 years, they've taken a lot of those balances and they've put them towards construction projects where we had deficits in the construction project. But again, the LFA is only filling the deficits of the non-City of Santa Cruz projects, which is one of the reasons the downtown project is so short of funds, because it doesn't have another pool the way the LFA has been able to provide additional funds at La Selva Beach and at Aptos.
Just to follow up on that, I think maybe this would be a whole separate topic because it interests me. I'd kind of like to see what their authority is to do that, to A, create separate pools, and B, to allocate it as they see fit. But I don't think we've got time for that. But what I really want to ask is the projection that's in here from Nicole Coburn.
Correct.
Is that to the library itself, or is that to the LFA where they're now projecting about $1.3 million more than they were projecting?
It goes to the LFA and they would have to allocate it to the library.
So part of it is Watsonville.
Part of it's Watsonville.
And at this point, we don't have a sense if we get half of it, or we get a third of it, or we get 2/3 of it.
I think we get more like 2/3 of it. There's some population basis to the formula.
Okay. And I just have to ask this. Are Measure S funds available for takedown and put up of library, or is it just hard costs for construction?
In Minnesota, I was able to do those kinds of moving costs through the bond issuance itself. I actually have looked at the bonding language and believe we could do that. But because our projects are all short, it's actually cheaper for me to hire it and do it than to hire a professional moving company to do the whole thing. So we're just trying to save money. And then, it's really hard for me, honestly, to spend a capital dollar. It's like spending a mortgage. You don't want to buy a car on your mortgage. You don't want short-term home improvements on your mortgage. So I try to the extent possible to put the actual bonded funds on the bond. And we've been short funds.
Yeah, it's just nice to know maybe there's a backstop.
And honestly, if not everyone's as interested in the detail of this, it would be really nice to have a member of the board that really understood sort of the financial piece. And if this is something you can think about, but like it's good to have a lawyer on a board and it's good to have an accountant on a board. Jim, if you're really interested, I would always find it useful to have someone who is interested in the details enough to help me question and think about it.
Oddly enough, I am.
Okay, well, it's a date. Okay.
I would just comment that if you're looking at maybe 2/3 of $1.3 million, that your 400,000 is maybe half of that amount, and it doesn't seem. It seems prudent to spend that amount because you have to anyway.
Right.
You have to take down and you have to put up
Right.
And if there is money, I mean, we're not today looking at a revised total budget, but this one component of it, if the rest of the budget was based on the prior projection for sales tax revenues, and now this is good news, it doesn't seem wrong to me to spend half of the good news on doing something you have to do anyway. And to do it with part-time labor, especially if it's some of the people we had to lay off who maybe haven't found other positions, that all seems logical to me.
Thank you.
Bruce.
Yeah, I would be interested in engaging in that conversation as well, Susan.
Thank you, Bruce. Maybe we could have a subcommittee on finance. Does that seem okay?
I liked the workshop idea.
Okay, everybody wants to hear about it. Okay. Well, maybe the three of us could plan the workshop.
There you go. Are there any other questions on the item? Because we do have a public comment on item B. Okay, seeing none, I'm going to ask Moderator Jones to open up the line for our public comment.
Judy, your line is open. You can unmute or I can read your question. You will have to unmute yourself, Judy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll just read it. My comment reads, I see this is way more complicated. My suggestion, not meaning to make, busy work for you at this very busy time, but in the interest of transparency, I was hoping there could be some kind of a document created that just explains to the public what these abbreviations mean. Because in background we have LJPB, which I assume is the same as the JPA. And then we have the next sentence, the LJPB requested timely updates to the board. So what board was that referring to? And then under discussion, we have the LFA, which I understand is different from the LFFA. And boy, I look forward to any light that you can shine on this to the general public, because it sounds extremely cumbersome. Thank you.
I would, I'll look at that. I agree. It's incredibly complicated governance structure.
And then Vice Chair Bass, we also have Jean. Your line is open.
Okay, thanks. I'm mostly commenting on what Judy just said. I'm not sure we need a document. It would be the Santa Cruz Public Library's website is like a library itself. It's where I go for information. And I think that somehow or other, maybe under your library boards, that website part, you could have and make it fun, acronyms goulash or something like that, and just pick up all of these things and put them in one place. In fact, I'd even volunteer to draft something like that if I knew who to send it to in terms of getting it up on the website. So maybe I'll just do that privately in an email with you, Susan. How about that?
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Moderator Jones, are there any other public comments on item 7B?
Vice Chair Bass, I don't believe there are any additional public comments at this time.
Okay, we can open this up for deliberation by the group and any suggested motions that the group would like to put forward.
Well, I would move that we endorse Susan's recommendation to the LJPB to release $400,000 of fund for staffing and associated costs.
I can
Okay, we have
second.
a motion on the floor to approve the recommendation for item 7B as written, and a second by Rena. Shall we move to a roll call vote? Clerk, will you call the roll?
Bruce Cotter,
Aye.
Rena Dubin,
Aye.
Jim Landreth,
Aye.
Mary Ripma,
Aye.
Trisha Wynn,
Aye.
and Vice Chair Lindsay Bass.
Aye. That motion passes unanimously. Go get that earmark. And we'll keep our fingers crossed that things continue to trend the same way for the duration of the year. Okay, and we're getting later into the evening, so we have a few more items on our agenda under general business. So we'll try to keep these as focused as possible, but these are also very important. So item number C is community input to LAC deliberations on the subcommittee report. So I believe this I'll open up for Bruce and Rena to comment on.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. At our last meeting, we had a conversation about some issues that had come up in this area, and the chair asked us to kind of review these areas, open it up for some conversation, and come back with some suggestion. I note that these are really just conversation items for tonight. We're not asking for any kind of motion or any kind of action. I would like to thank Rena for her help on putting this together, her hard work and good ideas. I'd also like to thank Jean Grockelbank and Judy Gunstra, who both sent suggestions into us, some of which you've already heard. So what I broadly did was break these down into three areas: the agenda and minutes, the website, and general and meeting related issues. And I'll just go through these, open it up for any questions. I will then provide the document that I'm reading from to Ivan, and then he can provide it to all the members of the commission, and perhaps we can have an action-oriented item on the agenda for our next meeting. So under agenda and minutes, the first thing was having a more transparent agenda process. Rena and I both realized we had no idea how to put something on the agenda as we were going through this process. So, just a discussion, a more clear discussion on how things get on the agenda, both from commission members and from the general public. As Jean noted in her comments, the LAC should be clear to the public on how the public might be able to or not suggest an item to be considered for placement on the agenda. Perhaps there could be a specific agenda item for each meeting called correspondence to LAC members. The second thing, we release the agenda the Friday before the Monday of the meeting. We would like to strongly suggest we release that agenda earlier, perhaps Wednesday of that week, perhaps even the Monday before, so that people have time to digest the many pages that agenda packet consists of, and come back with comments and potential additions. And also I concur with Jean's comment about the record of meetings is important to keep the community apprised of the activity of the LAC, and consistency on the record is needed. She is correct in her examples. I went and looked, and so I don't know why, but there is a certain amount of inconsistency there. On the website itself, some things that we think might be useful. First of all, an updated long-term calendar, rather than just saying the next meeting is. There's no reason we couldn't have, the next 4 or 6 meetings, so people can plan ahead and know when we're going to be meeting. Again, I think this came from Jean. The LAC webpage on the website should also stipulate those public comment opportunities during LAC meetings. I want to thank Sarah I know that that Moderator Jones, I know that she has been doing this for the JPA as well. I think having the ability for people to comment verbally in the meeting today has been very useful and handled very well. So thank you for that. Again, you know, the LAC webpage should list various ways in which the LAC welcomes comments from the public. I quite agree. One of the things that we thought was maybe we could just have a button on the website where you press that button and it opens up a field that you can put in your comments and your things that you would like to have added to the agenda. Certainly the technology exists. No reason why we couldn't take advantage of it. Some more general thoughts. I think it would be useful to have a generic email for the LAC that somebody could just pop a comment to that email and it would be distributed to all the members. And just an easy way for the community to talk to us. I think it'd be useful to more clearly advertise our availability. I am serving as the LAC representative now on the Friends of the Felton Library Steering Committee. And they recently had a note in their newsletter about my interest in hearing from people and my contact information. I think we should all be doing that. We should be talking to the friends groups in our areas and making sure people know who we are. It's a good way to find out information about what's happening at your particular area, your particular branches. And it certainly is available to them. It's helpful to them. More generally, again, same concept, communicate what our role is as commissioners to the community so people understand why we're here. I had opened up a public comments ability. We seem to have addressed that very nicely tonight. So thank you again for that. And those are really the main things we need to do, it seems to me. I don't think the lack of transparency is by purpose. I think it's just by a little bit of confusion in some of the areas. And I think that without a great deal of work, we can make it a much more effective and available commission for the support of our community, which is really what our purpose is. So that's what I have. Questions, comments, etc.
May I add?
Yeah.
May I just add something? Can you hear me better now with the headphones?
Yes, much.
Okay, good. Just to add that the county website that says about the, I think it was Judy Gunstra had mentioned that it's really unclear if we're a county, how we get appointed. As a county, you know, it's kind of like a county commission, but it's also different city jurisdictions. But if there is something on the county website under commissions that it could just lead to or link to the public library, our LAC webpage, and just really have that webpage. It just seems a little outdated, that it's been neglected a little bit, and it just, I think, would serve the public a lot better if we could just give it extra refreshing.
Oops, somebody muted me.
Oh dear. Okay,
Tricia,
so I just want to say that when I get an email from the public and they're asking about our procedures, I don't really feel comfortable as an individual making a response to them. I feel like this idea that you've come up with a generic LAC email might be helpful on that, where maybe we would have a way to talk together to see what is our collective opinion. I don't, unless you say to me, well, just go ahead and say what you think. But I just don't see how that's really very helpful.
The only thing I would say on that is you have to be careful about, it's okay for somebody to send an email to all of us. It's okay for us all to respond and talk about it in a meeting, but it's not okay for us all to talk in a round robin outside of a meeting, because then you're in violation of the Brown Act.
Yeah.
So that would be the only comment I think I would make on that. Tricia?
Well, first I want to thank Bruce and Rena so much for taking on this important topic. I think it is really important that we, use our voices, to truly inform Susan. We are the advisory board to Susan. So I spent my career in public service and did all kinds of public hearings all the time. It's never, in my experience, 30 years in state government, that the public would put something on the agenda. So I would want to be very, very careful of that. Now, if the public engages their voices, which is what we're supposed to be, and we would like to put something on the agenda, I'm glad that you're going to be looking at, the process for that. But mostly, I really just want to thank you guys so much. I mean, you're right. Some of these things are just really simple, and they're probably oversights. But it's still important to, to look to this. So I want to continue to work with you on this.
Thank you. And if I, Susan? You muted.
Sorry. Sorry, it's getting late. So can I make a suggestion? Maybe Bruce and Rena and I and Yvonne could meet and put together a package of definite recommendations based upon this conversation for the next meeting. Would people be comfortable doing that?
Yes.
And some of the stuff we can just fix. So
absolutely. Are you okay with that?
Okay.
Great, excellent.
That to be a yes. I'd just like to make one final comment on this general subject. I have seen communications from at least two of the people who are on as attendees tonight expressing, I guess, a feeling that their thoughts or input wasn't welcome, or they didn't feel comfortable expressing it. And I think I've said this before, I have served library boards where in a 3-year period, nobody could be bothered to come and attend a board of trustees meeting. So I really just want to say to them, we are interested in your input. We appreciate the time that you are spending to attend a meeting of this length at this time of night. We have to, we're on this commission, but you don't have to. So I am grateful to you for doing that. We are interested in your input. I hope you continue to give it to us. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Excellent. So there's no direct action item except for Susan to confer with Rena, Bruce, and Yvonne. And so we'll pick that up on the next meeting agenda with those recommendations. Thanks, everybody, for the hard work on that. And yeah, just to echo Bruce's comments, I think the entire group is excited and looking forward to working on how to increase the public's feeling of involvement in these meetings, to feel heard, and that their ideas and comments are welcome and appreciated. So thank you. Okay. Barring any other comments on item number C, I keep doing that. I keep calling them numbers and they're letters. I'm going to move on to the last one. Item D.
Excuse me, Vice Chair Bass, we do have public comment on C.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Okay. Moderator Jones, thank you for the reminder. If you'll please open up the line for public comment. Apologies.
Yes, Judy, go ahead. Your line is open. You may need to unmute.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for this subcommittee. That's great. I've been trying to get these issues addressed for a couple of years now. So one of the things that I had emailed, and I think Rena referred to it, was the fact that the LAC is not listed on the county website amongst all the other advisory boards because it's sort of a separate entity, along with the animal, protection, SPCA or whatever it is. So it's weird. So if somebody's looking, well, where's the Library Advisory Commission? they go down alphabetically and it's not there. So how, and then you can find out, again, if you scroll down under vacancies and past the at-large vacancies, then you see that there are district vacancies, and only if there happens to be an opening will you see that there is in fact a vacancy and under whose district that vacancy is. So, I was just thinking as a librarian, and then back in the old days of cataloging, we would have cross references. And so I was thinking as kind of a placeholder alphabetically on the county page where Library Advisory Commission would be, have the commission named, but then tell people where they can go to find out how to apply. If it is, you understand what I'm saying as a librarian, Susan? Yeah. Okay. So, and my other point was like, how can questions, I thought if someone had questions, the public has questions, if they emailed the LAC, a good amount of time, ahead of time, a week or so, is there a place during the meeting where those questions could be read so other people can hear that there are these questions, and I don't know if you can answer them. Is there a place during the meeting where you can answer questions? This is my question.
I think that's something we have to discuss, Rena and Bruce. I don't think that's ordinarily done.
Right.
And so we just need a process and a recommendation about how things make the agenda.
Right. It's not like springing on you, oh, I have this question at the last minute. I'm saying ahead of time, you might have time to, it might be a simple routine question, or, of course it wouldn't be too complex because you don't have time to get into, something like that.
And I think we just need to talk through that.
Okay, well, thanks very much. We're getting there. Thanks.
All right, and Jean, your line is open. You may need to unmute.
Oh, okay. Well, I think it's more than we're getting there. I am just really quite pleased by what I've heard tonight. The subcommittee of Rena and Bruce is just amazing. And I'm going to say also this board or this commission, because I started going to LAC meetings about almost 4 years ago. And for the first couple of years, there was sort of a sense of that the commission didn't even realize that the public was there to be heard. And so we didn't. But these members on this commission right now, and I am so sorry about Bob White. My heart goes out to all of you and my family. What an amazing man. And I like saying his name again tonight also, so he knows that the public respected and was happy for him. But this commission right now is just wonderful. And I've heard that you are going to discuss this further and come up with some recommendations. I also saw when you were discussing the idea of having openings on the LAC somehow or other place marked on the county commission page. They do that for another, it's some kind of a work board. They do the same thing. It's not really a county commission, but they have a place marker and you can click on it and tells you where to go. But so I saw you nodding, so I think that will probably go forward. And I just wanted to say last, I personally don't need to be able to put any, as a member of the public, to get my thing that I want on the agenda. I know that I can write to any of you and say, here's something that I'm thinking about and that you might think, and if you hear enough from the public and it's carefully laid out, the way I carefully laid out my thoughts in my email to Rena and Bruce, that'll probably happen anyway. So I give you accolades, not only for being a great commission and sitting in the parking lot of the Felton Public Library, do that. I feel really good about this meeting tonight, and I thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Jean, for your comments. Moderator Jones, are there any other public comments on item C?
Vice Chair Bass, I don't see any additional public comments on this item.
Great. Well, thank you again, Bruce and Rena, and to Eric and Susan and Yvonne and Sarah for making efforts to even implement some suggestions into the meeting tonight. It's clearly making a difference, and we'll just keep on that trajectory. Okay, I can't believe I almost skipped public comment on that item too. Apologies again for that. Okay, final item, item D, under general business. This one should be relatively straightforward. This is our meeting schedule for 2021. This is in the packet. So it lays out meetings for next calendar year. Are there any questions from the commissioners?
I know it's a slightly odd schedule. It's meant to be coordinated with the JPA so that concepts can be reviewed here before they go to the JPA. You notice there's several 2-month in a rows, and that's really around the budget process, so that we're in sync with the budget process.
Thank you for those clarifications. If there are no questions from commissioners, I'll ask the moderator if we have any public comments.
Vice Chair Bass, there are no public comments on this item.
Okay, with no public comments, I will open this up for deliberation and any motions that might be out to the group.
Can I just make a motion? May I make a motion to adopt the calendar as written?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Rena to adopt the calendar as written and a second by Tricia. Clerk Sumana Vargas, will you please call a roll call vote?
Bruce Cotter,
Aye.
Rena Dubin,
Aye.
Jim Landreth,
Aye.
Mary Ripma,
Aye.
Tricia Wynn,
Aye.
and Vice Chair Lindsay Bass.
Aye. Our new schedule passes unanimously. Thanks, everybody. Okay, we're getting there. We're almost there. Guys are troopers, and thanks to the public for hanging in there with us as well. Item number 8 on the agenda is scheduled upcoming meetings. So our next meeting will be January 25th, 2021 at 6:30, our normal time. At this point, anticipated agenda items for that meeting will be to elect a new chair and vice chair for 2021. Any other comments on this item, Director Nemitz?
No.
Okay. Our last item is adjournment then.
And I don't
Do
think
we
we
need
have. I don't think you have to move it.
I think we can just adjourn.
I was just going to say thank you, Lindsay, for.
Thank you.
You did a great job.
Yeah,
Great job.
Lindsay, I was thinking I would
Did a great
email
job.
you to say it, but I'll just say I think you did a wonderful job leading the meeting.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just say that it was Bob shining down from above, helping me through it, and all of you. Thanks so much for your patience.
Thank
All
you,
right,
everyone.
with that, we'll adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank
night.
you.
Bye.
Bye.